Welcome to Civic Hub, the podcast where we sit down with local leaders to explore how they serve their communities and shape the future of government. In this episode, we head to California's wine country for a conversation with Sonoma County Assessor, Clerk, and Recorder. We talk about the unique challenges and opportunities that come with wearing all three hats, from managing property assessments and vital records to ensuring fair elections and modernizing public services. Join us as we dive into how Sonoma County is embracing innovation while staying rooted in its community values. All right, so this week on Civic Hub, I am joined by a delegation from Sonoma County. I have Deva Marie Proto and Amanda King. Thanks for coming on, guys. Take a minute, introduce yourselves, and let your citizenry know who you are and what you do.
Well, my name, as you said, is Deva Marie Proto. I'm the Sonoma County Clerk-Recorder-Assessor, and for another couple weeks, the Registrar of Voters. So I've been elected for the last 6.5 years. I was elected first in 2018 and then re-elected in 2022.
Wonderful. Amanda?
I'm Amanda King. I'm the Chief Deputy Clerk Recorder, so I am the second and helper to Deva Proto.
Great. Well, again, thanks for coming on. Most of the folks that probably live in your county drive by county buildings, drive by offices that have titles. They probably don't know what goes on in there. So the point of this podcast sometimes is just to help your citizenry understand your role, what takes place behind those walls as they drive by, or if they need a record or a document, where do they go? Is your office the correct office to go to, or do they need to go somewhere else? So sometimes it helps to maybe unwind and unravel really what goes on behind the scenes in your office. What do you oversee? What does that look like for the general public? And just kind of speak to that a little bit.
So we have all the records, not all of them, all the good ones. We don't do the divorces. Those are with the courts. But we do have birth, death, and marriage records. We have all the land and financing records. So that's liens, mortgages, deeds of trusts. We have maps that are recorded. We have so much history in our office, the history of the county going back to the 1800s. We have all the images of all those documents. And then we have our assessor's office does all the property assessment in the county for tax purposes. So we're not the tax collector. We don't actually send out the bills or collect the money for that, but we do start the process in terms of setting the values. And then, of course, elections. We conduct all the special district, city, county, school, and then also the state and federal governments.
So you're probably one of many elected officials in Sonoma County. How large is your staff with kind of the 4 silos that you operate under?
We have about 120 employees in the department.
Okay. And Amanda, where do you fit in those departments?
So I manage the County Clerk Recorder's office, so that's the birth, death, and marriages and the land records. I have been doing that for about 18 years now, and we deal with everyone's rights. So at some point in time, someone has to come to our office.
Yeah, you guys kind of oversee on that avenue, cradle to the grave records about an individual's really existence within the county, from when they're born, from when they're married. If they get divorced, they have to go to the Superior Court side of the house. But really through death, and then if they have any real estate transactions, they're going to be recorded and documented in your office. As you guys look out to the future, these offices have been around since the county was incepted. You're obviously fulfilling maybe some of the same duties that was done 120, 130 years ago. How do you use technology in your office to do your day-to-day jobs? Like, what kind of systems are you using? What do you see on the horizon that could maybe increase access for your citizenry for these records, or just what neat innovations you kind of see out there in the marketplace?
Well, we definitely have very specific systems for each area of the office. So, for instance, elections, we actually have more than one based on the type of work that we need to do. So we have a segregated network in elections that has our voter registration system. So we're keeping information about voters, their address, their signatures, their history, where they've lived, where they've been registered to vote. We use that to send out the ballots and the envelopes and everything like that. And then we have separate systems, ones not connected to the internet, where we're actually scanning and tabulating the ballots. We have ones that organize our poll workers and all of our volunteers that work during the election. On the assessor side, we have multiple systems as well. We have our megabyte system, which is used for all of our assessment property records. And then we have a bunch of access databases that do very specific things that the one system does not do, or that we can do a little bit better to make sure we have that information. One of the big initiatives we're working on right now is trying to upgrade all of our data from previous times where we had customized a lot of stuff when we first implemented these systems. And now there's more modules available. There's things we can do within our assessment system that can really speed up efficiency, but we have to clean up our data in order to do that. So we're doing a lot of data cleanup projects and workflow improvements to make sure that we are going to be operating as efficiently as possible.
Great.
And then I'll let Amanda talk about the clerk recorder side.
Deva was previously the chief deputy clerk recorder and did a lot of digitization projects and implemented our current system, which is the Tyler Technologies records management system. And so we have a lot of our information available to the public. We have 1964 to present day available for searching by index online, and you can purchase the image and see the image after you buy it. We are working to get all of the previous images from 1830 to 1963 in that, so you'll be able to buy those. We have interesting things. Everything's done on film. We preserve on film so that nothing can hurt that file, but that's obviously going the way of the dinosaur, and so we are trying to make sure that we have these digital files and that they're clear and able to be reproduced forever. So
Yeah.
we try to go to one. We're trying to get to one system. It makes access easier for the public.
Yeah. So when you look on your voter side of the house, say I'm a 18-year-old, I've just graduated high school. How do I register to vote? Do I go to your office? How does that kind of journey take place so I can actually show up at one of your polling places, meet a poll worker, and actually vote?
Well, in California, there is a lot of options. So now people can pre-register to vote at the age of 16. So a lot of the time it happens through the DMV. People are going and getting their driver's license, and then they're also being signed up to be registered when they turn 18. So we obviously have their information, including their birth dates. So they stay in our system in a pending status until they turn 18. And then they're automatically registered to vote, and they'll be sent a ballot in the mail. If somebody doesn't do that, they can come into our office, fill out the paperwork. They can also do it online, but then we'll also need some verification, often another registration form, something that's so we can validate their signature, get an image on file. And then, of course, in California, we have conditional voter registration. So people can actually come into a vote center the day of the election and then fill out a form to register to vote. The ballot wouldn't be counted until we actually process the voter, make sure they're eligible to vote, make sure they haven't cast a ballot elsewhere. But you can register and vote same day.
Wow. So say I'm a transplant. I move into California as an adult. Easiest way to do would be go to the courthouse or go to your website, or just show up the day of voting. What would you recommend?
Probably doing it ahead of time would be best. So either when you're getting your driver's license or just filling out the information online. Again, that would be sent to us digitally, and then we would follow up if we needed anything from you. So getting it done in advance. In California, we mail all active registered voters a ballot in the mail about 30 days before the election. So the thing that's nice about that is you can actually look through the ballot, take your time, doing your research, reading, finding out about the different measures, the different candidates on the ballot. So you have a little bit less pressure because California definitely has some very large ballots. So if you're coming in that same day, sometimes that can be a little overwhelming.
Got it. Now, on the clerk recorder side, say I'm going on a trip, I need my birth certificate, maybe I have to get a passport. How would the average citizen accomplish that task?
We have 4 different ways that you can request a birth certificate. In California, you have to have your identity verified in order to receive a birth certificate, and you have to be a specific authorized person. So yourself, your parent, grandparent. You would fill out an application. The quickest way is to come into the office. The record is going to be held where you were born. So that can complicate things if you think that we're all connected and you come from another county into our office. We've been processing birth certificates like crazy because of the Real ID law going into effect on May 7th. We are up like 300% in requests. So,
Wow. So how do you guys handle that uptick? All of a sudden there's a surge of requests. Do you staff up? Do you work more hours? Do you just have a delay in getting the certificates back to the individuals? How do you respond to that?
Unfortunately, we are unable to staff up. Our staff is our staff. We make priority decisions. So a new business filing may not be processed when we're having birth certificate requests. So we've been doing our best at trying to stay on top of everything. Our office processes everything within 4 to 7 business days, and so that is pretty fast. The state, would do like 8 weeks. So
Got it. Do you think that Real ID law caught a lot of people off guard?
Well, we've had the Real ID law for quite a while, and it was going to be implemented in 2019, and then it was going to be implemented in 2020, and then it was waived because of the pandemic. A lot of people, I think, just chose to renew their licenses instead of getting Real ID. There's workarounds. People have to fix their names on their birth certificates, things like that, because the Real ID law makes you get your license in the name that's on your record. There was a certain point in time when they would write NMN for no middle name, and DMV was issuing driver's licenses with middle names of NMN because the law is so specific.
Wow.
So there's a lot of amendments going on too. Just a lot's happening. But yeah, I think a lot of people were thrown off.
Yeah. How have you guys responded to the legislation that has to do with kind of the restrictive covenants and the redaction and all that?
We've been doing a lot. We had started looking into it ahead of time. We have a lot of our old records digitized, but it's in an older system that was imaged microfilm. So very difficult to actually kind of maneuver through, do searches. But we had done OCR on a number of the documents. So we were able to do keyword searches if the image was good enough. So we had kind of poked through the records to see what kind of language might be there. And then when this law passed, we took the opportunity to really start a project where we are now going through all of our records. Because of the way our records are held, we started with 1964, and we're working our way into the present while we're working on a secondary project, as Amanda mentioned, to get all of the older pre-1963 records into the same system that we have our current records. So once we do that, we'll start moving backwards from the 1964 date, which of course is going to be where the bulk of the restrictive language and covenants are located. So right now, moving forward, it's the bulk of the documents, the modern system, the modern number of records that we record are much, much higher than what they used to record in the past. So our volume is huge. There's not going to be as many restrictive covenants, but we are finding them because somebody just copied a legal description that was from 1940, didn't read through it. Sometimes they just copied it verbatim. So we're catching those records where this illegally restrictive language might be in there, and it was a document that was recorded in 2005.
Yeah. Spell check and fact check sometimes gets overlooked on some of these recordings.
Yes.
When we look at how legislative actions affect your offices, What other things do you see on the horizon? Maybe new legislative things that are working through committee. Does that seem to be impactful every year? Is it every couple years? Do you keep a good pulse on that? How do you find out about it? And, how do you react and respond when all of a sudden there's a legislative mandate that you now have to do additional work or change your workflow?
Well, in California, we're very lucky because we have some really strong state associations where our County Clerks Association, our County Recorders Association, we have legislative committees that will meet regularly. They're constantly monitoring both pending legislation and then the impacts of those legislation. So is the county clerk, is the recorder mentioned? And if so, is it just a administrative thing where a new document type might be created? Is it going to add unfunded mandates? Is it going to complicate our operations? So some of the legislation, for instance, we have one on the recorder side that we are supporting, and that is to increase the fees to cover the actual costs. The last time we had a fee increase was many, many years ago. It's set at the state level, so we can't increase it. But of course, inflation, cost of living, our staff salaries, supplies, systems, the paper, postage, everything has gone up, and those fees haven't kept up. One of the interesting things about the recorder's office is we're really self-funded. So we're not making a profit, but we're generally not drawing on the general fund. So that monies can be preserved for things like law enforcement, things like elections, and the recorder's office funds itself. That's getting difficult right now just because of the difference in the actual cost and what we can charge for documents. And then there's also legislation. There's a lot of concern right now about deed fraud and privacy. And so we're seeing those types of things pop up in legislative initiatives that we are trying to provide insights on what the impacts might be. And then also, what are some of the complications that people who don't work in our industry might see that are really consequences they haven't thought about? Because to them, it seems like a very easy situation. It seems like a very easy fix. And we have to sit over here going, but have you thought about this? What about the open public records? The fact that if somebody needs to enforce a child support lien, those records have to be open in order to see that that lien needs to be enforced.
Yeah.
So,
how would you explain deed fraud and property fraud to an average citizen, and kind of go into a little bit how it could affect them and what can they do?
I think the biggest thing is that it's important to keep an eye on your properties and in the public records. Make sure that you are monitoring everything. A lot of places, a lot of companies will say that they can prevent deed fraud. You can sign up and you will get notified if somebody attempts to steal your property. But what they don't tell people is that there really isn't any prevention. It's a notification after the fact. So
it's already been committed.
It's already been committed because that's how people can find out about it. So getting notified is good. Like, we want people to know soon if there is something. What we've seen is generally we've seen more, I would say, family fraud, where either it's probate related or there might be elder abuse, but some type of family or friend relationship where they're trying to take advantage of someone. But we also have seen, especially vacant lots, where there's no mortgage on it, it's owned free and clear, where somebody might be trying to commit a financial crime where they're taking out a mortgage and then not paying it back and everything like that. So all of our indexes are available in real time, 24/7 on the internet. So people can search their name, make sure everything looks good. And then there's also pending legislation in California right now that we're monitoring and trying to figure out how we can best react to. There's some options right now, but they're all opt-in. They maybe wouldn't be the best for people that aren't technologically savvy. So you have to have an email, you have to monitor it, you have to know how to sign up. So some of the legislation is talking about mailing notifications to the most recent assessed owner. So we just have to make sure that we are setting up something that if that legislation goes through, that we'll be able to still be in compliance. We don't want to have to set up a system and then immediately scrap it because the legislation does not work with it.
Got it. Do you see a lot of instances in your county of property fraud or deed fraud?
No, I don't think so. We have definitely seen attempts. We've seen some that we've referred to the DA because they looked suspicious. We've talked to a number of title companies where they have been pretending to be one of the owners with falsified records, and they're trying to get through the title companies to commit this fraud. And so the title companies have started doing more verification on their side. On the assessor's side, what we had been hearing about is that people were trying to change the address for the tax bills so that if somebody was sent a notice, that the original owner would not be notified because they had changed the tax bill address. So what we did on the assessor side is implemented an identification where you have to upload, you can request it online, but you do have to upload your driver's license so you can prove that you are indeed the owner of that property before we'll switch the tax address.
Wow. That's pretty tricky on some people trying to switch the address.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty smart. I think that's one misnomer is that people think people committing fraud are not smart people, and it's also not coming from within the United States sometimes. It's coming from outside of it. And so all we can do as a fancy library of land records is make sure that you know how to search your own name.
Yeah, because when someone submits a recording, it could be coming from anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily just within Sonoma County.
And I think there is another kind of misunderstanding that we are in some way validating or proving the identity of the person. And really, we are not investigators. We do not have a mandate to refuse a recording unless it doesn't meet the legal statutes for recording requirements that we have in California. So if we get a document that looks acceptable on the face of it, it meets all the legal recording requirements, we are required as the recorder to put that into the record. Again, if we see something that looks suspicious or something like that, we will refer it to the DA as soon as we notice something weird because we do want them to investigate it. We want to make sure that there is no fraud going on. But in terms of us being able to sit there and do research on the property records and determine, is this correct? Is this the real person submitting it? We don't have that mandate. We don't have the ability to investigate. So it can be difficult because people kind of want us to do that, and it's a difficult place to be. We want to preserve everything. We want to preserve the integrity of the public record, but we also have to make sure that we're following the law.
Right. How do you respond and react when you get sovereign citizens coming in and just filing massive amounts of fictitious documents, or do you see that? I know it's kind of an interesting topic sometimes at the association meetings of how do you react to individuals that come in and have large amounts of documents that they want filed for record?
Well, in California, we have very specific document types that can be recorded, and they all have certain recording requirements that have to be met. So in other states, there are different rules that require them to take any document that is submitted. In California, since it is a little bit more restrictive, we are able to push back a little bit to make sure those documents meet recording requirements. And in terms of dealing with them, we really just try to explain the law that we have to follow, regardless of what they think we should do. We just have to kind of patiently explain, unfortunately, this is the law in California, and that is what we're going to be sticking to. If somebody doesn't like that, they can always take their document to Superior Court and try to have a judge compel us to record that. We have had that happen a couple of times. We've gotten sued for failing to record a document that did not meet recording requirements. And so far, we have won on all of those cases. So that's a nice one to know that we are doing our job correctly.
And when we have anybody who doesn't understand recording laws, we have a manual out in our lobby that we show them. These are the things that are recordable. Perhaps what you're trying to do is recordable, just not in the way you're presenting it to us. We have to stick to strict legibility rules. That's usually what we'll find with specific document types that are presented to us that are not recordable. It would be not legible in some way. So we just try to educate.
Yeah. So you have some resources available for them to look through and try and tweak their recordings to make them.
Yeah.
Great. When you guys kind of look at your tenure in office, you've both been there for some time. What are some of the success stories that you would want to think back upon and maybe share?
Well, I think that on the clerk recorder side, when I was the chief deputy clerk recorder, converting our system was a huge undertaking that I think went really well. We had, I think, 2 or 3 different vendor solutions for different areas. So we had a solution just for marriage licenses, another one just for document recordings, another one for fictitious business names, and then we had a bunch of standalone access databases for CEQA filing, for notary publics, and changing, converting, and consolidating all that information into one system, I think really made a lot of efficiencies. I think it made access easier, training easier for the staff. So that is something that I think is fantastic that I'll always remember. And then I think on the election side, I think honestly just the last 6 years have been a little crazy. I got elected in 2018. In 2019, we implemented a new election system for ballot tabulation. Then we had the 2020 elections and we had the pandemic. We had to change completely how we were conducting elections. We had to move to vote centers that were open to multiple days and get equipment in all of our vote centers that we had never had before, never used, never trained people on. And so the time period, the about 8 and 6 months between the primary election in 2020 and the general election in November, we did so much and we pulled it off, and it was phenomenal. Like the teamwork, the amount of effort that everybody in the office put in was incredible. And then, of course, after the 2020 election, we had conspiracy theories and a lot more election deniers, and that led to public records requests and observers and a lot of challenges. And I think our team has really rolled with it. We've sat there, we started live streaming our ballot tabulation room, our what we call our extra help room, where we're actually extracting the ballots, our warehouse where we're sorting our envelopes. So the public access, the trying to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible. I think we've taken some amazing strides there, and it's been great because every year we get a little better.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'll have to tune in for the live stream of when they're tabulating.
I think for me, it has been the pandemic had changed so much so quickly. One of the things that we did was we were allowed in California to do video conference marriages. A lot of county clerks had to close down during the pandemic or were not available to the public. We were serving most of California doing virtual weddings on Zoom. And that was...
So you were serving constituents outside of Sonoma County?
Yes, we would issue their marriage license online and then turn around and do a wedding right online. It was very moving a lot of the time. You think it's not going to be the wedding of my dreams to get married on Zoom, but it really has nothing to do with the clerk on the other side. It has everything to do with that couple, and we did a lot. I think, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I think we issued 3,000 marriage licenses that year, and 900 Zoom weddings.
Wow.
And then the other thing I think that we are very proud of is our disaster response, which a large amount of our disaster response has been positive because of the changes that Deva had put in with being able to access our records remotely. Our team switched overnight to being at-home workers, and we were not down at all to help the public.
We haven't talked a lot about the assessor side. When we went through the pandemic, how did that affect that part of your office?
Well, as Amanda mentioned, we had unfortunately had a series of disasters in Sonoma County. So we had our 2017 fires, we had 2019 fires, and we learned a little bit from each one of those disasters. So in 2017, our offices were evacuated. Most of the county was evacuated. We lost 5,000 homes. It was massively devastating, and people were really just trying to figure out what was going on those first couple days. We had to open the recorder as a mandated service, and there are still transactions that are happening, mortgages that are getting paid off, and they need to get those documents recorded. We have minimum timelines, so if we receive a reconveyance for a mortgage being paid off, that needs to be recorded within 2 days. So we had a very short timeline to spin up our systems, and all we had was our current office, which happened to be in an evacuation zone. So
Wow.
we just asked everybody, if you feel comfortable coming in, if your family is safe, if you are safe, if your home is safe, we do have to open. And we had a number of staff members who did. I kept an eye on the emergency evacuation center, which was right across the street, as well as the jail. I figured if they started evacuating those, we would leave as well. But we were able to get through that. And then in 2019, again, we got evacuated, but we had put things into place so that we were able to keep up our operations. So every time we got a little bit better. And then when everything went sideways with the pandemic and we're told we need to close down, everybody already had laptops in the office. So the assessor's office was able to basically pick up and start working from home immediately. One of the things about our offices is that we never fully went remote because we received so much paper just from constituents, from mandated forms that have to have a wet signature on them, especially in the assessor's office. So we still had people cycling through the office, but we were able to explore some of the remote work, and we've still been able to continue that based on the team that they're with, the type of work they're doing, the size of the team. So some areas of the office, we don't have any remote work available simply because you're helping customers in person. There's really no options for that. But our assessor's office has a little bit more flexibility because we have some larger teams. So we still are able to offer some remote work. But like I said, we started looking at our systems. How could we be more disaster resilient? How could we access things? We have servers spun up in case something happens to our regular system. We could still get in. If the power goes out at the office, how are we still going to be able to access things? So we've put all these different things into place to make sure that we are able to continue to serve the public anytime anything happens.
Yeah. Disaster recovery and resilience is a very important part of the job. I live in a hurricane zone, been hit by a Cat 5, and people don't think that county government, local government, they don't shut down. When that Category 5 was coming through, local EMS, local public safety, local law enforcement, they're still there. And they still expect the courthouse to be open to accept those recordings, those registrations, those requests. So if your peers and colleagues are listening, what one or two things that you guys have learned through multiple disasters that you could share with them to help them become more resilient? If you had to put together like a best practice guide, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would say, make sure you do these?
I think obviously having kind of the disaster recovery backups for your systems having those tested, making sure that you are able, if something happens to the system, if something happens to the county servers, the county data center, are you going to be able to access that information? And then for us, we have a limited budget, so it's not like we have another facility that we can go to. And what we figured out is we just really had to be flexible and creative in terms of, well, if there is a fire coming and we're in the evacuation zone, what is available and where? If something's coming from the north, we're not going to go north to find a facility. We're obviously going to go to our south part of the county. But we've had fires in the south, and we won't be able to use that same facility if there's a fire that's near that. So trying to just be aware of the county and what options you might have, and then also kind of a reciprocity. Do you have neighboring counties that you may be able to go set up shop at if your county is not accessible? Or we talked to one county who was being threatened by fire, and they were trying to figure out where to take their records and where they might be able to operate out of. And we were talking about having them come down to get them out of the fire area to our county and our facilities. So luckily they didn't have to use that option. But, and then we've also looked, we now have Go boxes with, all of our staff have laptops, but scanners, we got some small scanners specifically so
Deva didn't have to carry out a 30-pound scanner in the middle of evacuation, which she did.
Yeah, I'm trying to envision a ditch bag that includes a scanner, only in county government.
We got some little ones that are like this big. They won't be the best images, but we'll still be able to capture images. And that is a direct result of me carrying out a massive Fujitsu scanner to the back seat of my car and swearing quite a bit and taking breaks because this thing is so heavy. For the 2017 fires, it was the same type of thing. We didn't have laptops. So I was carrying out towers and monitors because we just could operate. So now everybody has laptops and people are able to work a little easier remotely. We're able to switch pretty quickly. So
very good. Do you have any insights into this, or?
I was just going to make a comment about the scanner because it makes me laugh. The scanner is so big and she's strong at least. So, but having the desktop scanners, I think, has changed things for us in an evacuation because we have to scan those items or they don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you guys have shared a bunch of wonderful insights. Just want to thank you again for coming on. And it's really exciting to hear how you've responded to disasters, the modernization efforts that you've been a part of for the last few years, and just to help your constituents and your citizens better understand what goes on in these offices in Sonoma County. So thank you for coming in. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Mic check. It's co-file Chris with the clarity, breaking down the system like a tech barbarity. Civic Hub's live surfing knowledge like a tsunami, rolling through the info smooth Maserati. Civic vibes, we innovate and elevate. Local government shift, let's recalibrate. Tech meets transparency, the gap we abbreviate. Civic Hub anthem, come participate. Street lights buzzing, city halls we navigate. Machines in the council throwing out the candidate. Blockchain buzzing, Chris gonna moderate. Algorithm steering votes, lines automate. Plug in, gather round this pod like it's holy. Future blueprint drafted digitally solely. Ideas hatch quick, think it's gotta be Goldie. The Civic Hub thrives where the minds all moldy. Policy precision sharper than a switchblade. Red tape slayer, break it open with the upgrade. AI council, tech dreams don't cascade. We building the future, bricks cut from the data spade.